I am Mark Drabenstott, the Secretary General of the Global Coalition for Efficient Logistics, or GCEL. It's a great honor to participate with such distinguished speakers at this important UAB conference. GCEL certainly enjoyed the opportunity to have constructive dialogue with UAB members last year here at your annual conference. I'm happy to tell you that we have even better news for Arab banks today. After extensive consultations with public and private groups in all corners of the globe, leading organizations are now joining us to trigger the global innovation that will spark a new $5 trillion market opportunity for financial institutions here and around the world. At a time when both banks and the media are still sorting out what caused the global crisis and what new capital regulations mean, that's good news indeed. I have a healthy respect for the critical role that banks play in underpinning strong, sustained economic growth. I spent most of my career working with banks at the Federal Reserve, and I saw this connection firsthand. I would point out, however, that I did have the good sense to leave the Fed about a year before the crisis hit. It is no surprise that economic recovery is painfully slow in many parts of the world. Many banks are simply not in strong enough health to supply the credit to sustain the economic rebound that everyone wants. Focusing on the links between media and banking is certainly appropriate, especially as we reflect on the global impacts of a crisis that began with a financial and regulatory system that failed to manage what were, in hindsight, huge systemic risks. As the fourth estate, the media serves the public interest by sharing vital financial information among investors, borrowers, and public officials. Lessons will be drawn, no doubt, on how the media can help ensure that such a crisis is not repeated. Such lessons promise to be a highlight of the discussions here over the next 2 days. One lesson is surely that widely shared financial information creates visibility, which in turn leads to greater accountability and sound banking decisions. Regulators would add, of course, that this must be supported by ensuring a sound capital base at banking institutions, a point emphasized last week with the Basel III announcement. Another lesson is that the media can amplify uncertainty if they are too preoccupied with current problems and, in the process, shift the expectations to short-term issues. While financial problems need to be aired, many problems can only be solved by a focus on fundamentals, which usually require long-term horizons. Such fundamentals as competitiveness, open trade, innovation are especially critical to today's global economy, yet they can be easily lost in a cascade of stories aimed solely at financial problems. Indeed, in the end, sound banking depends most of all on sound loans to sound businesses. The firms must be profitable and growing. The risks must be assessed accurately and then managed well. The media and banking regulations both play important roles in the period ahead. But we must never lose sight of the importance of sustaining business profits while at the same time providing the tools that help you and your borrowers manage risk. I emphasize this essential banking foundation for good reason. The very essence of GCEL's global initiative is creating the conditions that allow businesses to thrive and providing the tools that connect banks and businesses in powerful new ways that reduce risk. We live in a world that has moved from Google to Twitter to Facebook. The spread and openness of information flows have always been of primary concern to the banking community. They critically influence our ability to evaluate risk and how it changes over time. I suppose that most of us in this room are too old to remember the birth of the financial wire services, like Reuters, that transformed how financial information is shared. This old media had profound effects on the banking industry. Today, the new media, everything that surrounds the internet, has the power to do even more than the wire services of a century ago. In fact, GCEL grows out of this fresh capacity of the media to connect our globe. GCEL has studied closely the enormous capacity of this new media, and our global initiative focuses on harnessing it to create an open platform that will share information on all the stages of commerce around the world in an open and transparent way. This will help firms and banks do business in new and better ways that are cheaper and less risky. Allow me to briefly introduce GCEL and our global initiative and how it can benefit Arab banks. Our special session this afternoon will let you explore our program in greater detail and how you can participate. GCEL is a nonprofit public-private partnership based in Geneva, Switzerland. We bring together more than 30 governments and 13 NGOs with members and supporters who include the WTO, the UN, and the OECD, as well as many prominent finance, insurance, and technology companies from around the world. Like you, we recognize that trade is the linchpin to our economic future. History shows that trade is the only engine that powers sustained economic progress. Today, however, that trade engine is sputtering. It's under threat from protectionism, sluggish recovery in many parts of the world, and a lack of trade finance as credit markets recover. The trade engine also sputters from a problem that few acknowledge. The infrastructure that enables global trade is highly inefficient. Today's trade platform is highly fragmented. A benchmark study by APEC reveals that a typical trade transaction involves 27 to 30 shipping participants, 40 documents, most of them still paper, and many data elements rekeyed many times. To put it simply, the world's trade pipeline is clogged by inefficiency. Properly harnessed, the new media presents us the opportunity to change that. What is more, the very nature of trade has changed dramatically, and our global trade platform has simply not kept pace. The information associated with the movement of goods is now a critical part of the flow of commerce, to shippers, to carriers, to businesses, consumers, and, of course, to banks. Unfortunately, we lack the digital platform to allow vital information to be shared seamlessly all along this chain of commerce.